This is a Film Stories original podcast.
Love this podcast? Support this show through the Acast supporter feature. It's up to you how much you give, and there's no regular commitment. Just hit the link in the show description to support now.
Explaining football to the friend who's just there for the nachos? Hard. Tailgating from home like a pro with snacks and drinks everyone will love? An easy win. And with Instacart helping deliver the snack time MVPs to your door, you're ready for the game in as fast as 30 minutes. So you never miss a play or lose your seat on the couch or have to go head-to-head for the last chicken wing. Shop Game Day Faves on Instacart and enjoy $0 delivery fees on your first 3 grocery orders. Offer valid for a limited time. Other fees and terms apply.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Need a holiday gift that will keep her sparkling all year long? Blue Nile, the original online jeweler, has experts on hand 24/7 who can help you find the perfect piece. Beyond that, Blue Nile makes the gifting experience easier than ever, with guaranteed free shipping and returns, as well as a wide assortment of jewelry of the highest quality at the best price. Right now, get 30% off jewelry at BlueNile.com. That's BlueNile.com for 30% off. BlueNile.com.
Local sound.
Oh, yeah.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Writers on Film. This is I've lost count now, but it's another special report from the Cannes Film Festival, and I'm delighted to say I'm joined by a very close friend. Hugo, do you want to introduce yourself and tell us about where you're from and who you write for?
Sure, I'm Hugo Emmerzaal. I'm a Dutch film critic. I'm an editor of Filmkrant, which is the only still last independent cinema magazine in the Netherlands.
It's very careful about pronouncing the name of the publication there, because
it could have easily be film CUNT, yes, for sure. Yeah,
absolutely. And we're going to talk about one film in particular, which has my screening received a less than enthusiastic reception. You were at the same screening. Do you think that's true?
I think that's true. I think a lot of people are kind of mixed on it, but I think we'll get into why, for us, that's not essentially the case. It was Horizon, an American Saga by Kevin Costner.
So this is the passion project, the second passion project to arrive here in the Croisette, after Francis Ford Coppola's Megalopolis. And for me, I was really looking forward to this because I'm a huge fan of Westerns, and I know you are too, Hugo.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, this was like, obviously, Megalopolis is the film that, you know, the most people were beaming about when it got announced in Cannes. And I think this is quietly, like you say, in the same vein. And for me, was like of special interest exactly because what you say, like just having a Western from a contemporary filmmaker here in Cannes is already quite interesting. But then also to have a Western from a director who is so committed to this genre, who is so interested in reviving that genre as well, or just living in it in a sense. So yeah, I was pretty excited going in, and I have to say I wasn't disappointed at all by the film itself.
So the film has started its production the conception of the film after the release of Open Range, and it's a really interesting story because, a little bit like Deadwood, it starts with the idea of the beginning of a community, but it goes much further back. It's a real beginning of a community in the West with the wilderness, nobody there at all, and it almost immediately begins with a disaster.
Yeah, the film starts with frontier settlers that, you know, they're really the pioneers, I guess, in that settlement. 3 people come there and it's a beautiful opening scene, actually, and that already gave me a lot of trust in that Costner knows what he's doing and what he wants to do, because you see them very carefully measuring out the way that they want to divide the land. They're using all these measurement equipment, some very nice quippy sequences there as well, where you can see through the scope of these kind of like measurement tools how they want to lay out the ranch or plot their land. they build it, but then immediately violence strikes and they're met with, let's say, an unwelcome message by the Apache community that obviously is the native inhabitants of that land. And that really immediately sets the tone for the rest of the film, where it's constantly seemingly the struggle between the frontier man and the already established community of the Apaches that are living on their land, that are feeling that they're encroached. That's it in small, but I think what the most interesting thing is then about the film, how immediately Costner expands the cast of characters, the storylines, to kind of give this crazy novelistic scope of it, very much reminiscent of like very like epic Western films, How the West Was Won or something like that, in this kind of like kaleidoscopic skill almost.
I love that. I think that's absolutely true. That scale, How the West Was Won, also having that, you know, you say kaleidoscopic, but it was like a CinemaScope production. One of those used to be a roadshow exhibition model. I love that. And of course, this takes place during the Civil War. Yeah. That's mentioned several times, although we don't see anything of that. But we do see sort of other parts of the United States where things are going on, where characters are on their way to Horizon, presumably. The first of this, which happens about an hour into the film, is the appearance of Costner himself.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised by, you know, if you take a lot of cues from Eastwood as the quintessential actor turned director and icon of Western big screen films, you would assume that he maybe wants to introduce his character in some kind of flashy way, or in some kind of like establishing it in a very strong manner, distinctive almost. The funny thing about the introduction of Costner's character, who is kind of like a lone ranger cowboy, kind of, you know, just roaming around the West or whatever. He's kind of a mysterious character, but he's very unassuming and low-key in his kind of establishing shots. Actually, the American troops are like much more in the forefront of the shot, where he arrives in the local community after some things have gone awry, and he immediately gets into some very peculiar and kind of like very locally specific business. He doesn't seem at the beginning of the film to be part of the overarching narrative of the film per se, which I thought was an interesting choice to kind of like, he's the quote-unquote auteur of the film, he's the director, he's one of the lead actors, but he also somehow takes a backseat in the way that he represents himself vis-a-vis the other characters, and I was like, that's interesting. That's a choice for sure.
Yeah, he starts the furthest away from Horizon.
He really kind of like, just kind of like slowly edges into the screen. It's not even that there's like a super strong establishing shot on him at all. He's just kind of like bunch of a group of individuals, and then he gets singled out for very specific reasons, and that kind of like starts his own narrative arc. But he just seems like he's part of a bigger trajectory or movement that seemingly this film is trying to, you know, probe, to map out. And I mean, obviously we've only seen 1/4 of it, because it is intended, I think, as a 4-part epic, and only the first and the second part are in the can and already shot and edited and completed. And we've now only seen the first part, which is a 3-hour epic already, but it's still really setting the table. So where his character is gonna go, we don't quite know yet. But it's definitely interesting how he positions himself within that world in a very peculiar manner.
And the other sort of subplot, if you like, is there are a couple of other subplots, but there's a major one is a wagon train heading toward on the Santa Fe Trail, heading towards, again, you assume they're gonna bypass
to Horizon or something,
exactly,
or bypass it by accident.
Absolutely. One of the things I loved about this film is it seems to be sort of collecting almost cliches from where, you know, you actually have a line where somebody says, circle the wagons. And, you know, there wasn't quite, we'll head them off at the pass. But there are so many cliches in this film, and or familiar tropes, if you prefer. And yet I love them. I love all those moments.
For me, it's like, I mean, if you take a look at contemporary Westerns, or even just kind of like the very intense, like psychologically interior almost Westerns of Sergio Leone or whatever, those are all these kind of films that we now often reference because they have become so iconic, but they themselves are already, of course, deconstructions or reconstructions or riffs or whatever on, let's say, the quintessential old style early 20th century Western. And it seems that Costner is doing a thing that is maybe very unhip, but then in that case also quite exciting, where he kind of circumvents all of those things. It's not Once Upon a Time in the West, it's not Unforgiven, it's not Deadwood or any of those things. I feel like he's much more kind of referencing just classic 1930s Westerns in the way that they were. Maybe sometimes a bit more still operating very consciously within these kind of like cliche vernacular. And I think for him, that's actually the bolts and nuts of what makes those films sticks. And it seems that that's the thing that he's most interested in here, just recreating the old-timey Western, which is, I don't know, like somehow the only thing I could think of is like Paul McCartney kind of reconstructing all these kind of like ditty tunes, you know, these kind of like little old style Americana pop tunes into his own kind of like sensibility, just kind of totally unhip all the time, but coming from a person that is clearly very able at reworking it in the 21st century, it comes out as surprisingly fresh and exciting.
I know exactly what you mean. I was talking to a critic earlier who said this is so sort of conservative with a small c and conventional that it's actually in the avant-garde.
Yeah, I see what they mean. I would almost agree, because he's, I don't know, and also there's one film that I had to think of a lot, and that's obviously a one that's weighing a lot on the Western film history in general, which is, you know, Heaven's Gate. And the thing was so good about that film was its lived-in character and just kind of like just building the set, spending time with it. This is obviously also what Deadwood did very, very tremendously well. This is the thing that also makes Costner tick, but then within that, his narrative itself is quite low-key. And that combination of still having, let's say, the verisimilitude of a real lived-in Western world, but then also keeping the stories somehow quite modest, quite approachable. It works. It's interesting. It's kind of exciting to look at.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing that I think is subverting the Western in any way whatsoever. No. There's no irony here. There's no winking.
No.
There was one bit where somebody almost thought they led the audience to believe that the cavalry had come, and the gasp was not, oh, thank God the cavalry has arrived, but oh no, something much worse is happening. And that was the only moment that I thought, oh, they've sort of twisted our expectations a little bit.
Yeah.
But I just thought it was genius. I think there's a scene in here where you have Costner and another man who's an obvious antagonist walking through the woods, talking in this very guarded manner to each other, all saying both saying things which aren't really what they mean, and violence is going to happen. It's inevitable. And I just thought, well, isn't that just the Western in microcosm?
And then when the violence comes in that scene and you feel it building up, I was like, there's one very remarkable shot, because it leads into a shootout.
I know exactly the shot you mean.
It's like this classic duel situation, and Costner obviously is a man more of virtue and moral in this film. I mean, that makes a lot of sense, you know. He's kind of like the all-American guy, a very unassuming character in a way, so he upholds some of these, let's say, virtues. The other character is, let's say, a bit more of a scumbag. And you know, he tries to go for his gun. Costner responds, shoot him, but he's still alive, and he's, you know, trying to retaliate from behind this kind of like small water basin, this kind of like trough, small water trough. And then there's this fantastic shot where he thinks he's still aiming his gun at Costner, but he's already wounded a little bit and kind of like lurching and leaning over the trough. You think he got Costner in his aims, and then in the reflection of the water, suddenly you see Costner with the gun aimed at him, ready for the finishing shot. And it's just those kind of like neat little tidy things that he does. Also with the editing that was quite tight, especially in the scenes with violence. And there's some like very ultra-violent moments where there's much more like group unmasked kind of like combat situations. He keeps a very tight control over it, and I think if you're like both of us are apparently very much into these kind of westerns, that's the kind of things that you want to see, that the machine is just built up, it's operating smoothly, the results are very nice. It's not going to change your perception of a western, but in a world where we're maybe kind of starved for contemporary westerns that don't try to wink at the genre, this is maybe the only thing we got. So we better celebrate it, but I think we can do it for reasons as well.
I think this is the best Western I've seen since Hostiles, and the best the cinematic Western.
Yeah.
It just looks so good on the big screen. Listen, Hugo, thanks so much for joining me. One more point.
I want to do one more point, because to kind of tease the audience as well, but I think the most insane film that the film does, and then it really turns into the avant-garde, is the finale, which just becomes this flurry of images, a super tight, fast succession of cuts that preview the things to come, and my mind was basically blown. I mean,
it's chapter 2. It's coming in August.
The chapter 2 is coming in August, and I mean, maybe I'm now just trying to follow the hype of it, but it did such a good job at laying the table or setting the table and then serving the feast in chapter 2 and maybe the other chapters to come. So yeah, I think we're like in for a good time.
Excellent. Brilliant. Yeah. Thanks so much, Hugo.
My pleasure. Thank you, John. Nice.
Cue the fireplace and your favorite fall movie. There's nothing better than a cozy evening at home with a glass of First Leaf wine. First Leaf is a personalized wine club that delivers right to your door. Sounds magical, right? They get to know your favorite tasting notes, which varietals you enjoy, and whether you prefer sweet or dry wines. So in every shipment, you get bottles tailored to your unique palate. Go to tryfirstleaf.com/fall to get your first 6 wines for just $44.95 with free shipping.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. You chose to hit play on this podcast today. Smart choice. Make another smart choice with Auto Quote Explorer to compare rates from multiple car insurance companies all at once. Try it at progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.